Welcome to Big Blend Radio's art show featuring Victoria Chick, a contemporary figurative artist and early 19th and 20th century print collector. Hey everybody, today we are going to talk about why be a patron of the arts, whether it be a museum, helping an artist do a project, maybe sponsoring an author or a musician. That's what we're going to talk about, why it's important to support the arts, especially as a lot of government funding has gone a wayside, even in schools these days. So very excited to have, of course, Victoria Chick, who's on the show every third Saturday. Victoria is a contemporary figurative artist, an early 19th, 20th century print collector. She's based in Silver City, New Mexico, and spearheaded the Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center. And this project is a massive project that she's been working on with others for a number of years. And their main goal is to actually have a building to house a lot of the art that has already been donated and also have educational programs. That's why it's not just a regional museum of art, but also an art center. So check out their website. It is swrm-art.org. And of course, to keep up with Victoria, it's victoriachick.com. All the links are in the show notes, but welcome back, Victoria. How are you?
Thank you, Lisa. That was a great introduction.
I thought so myself. I'm like, can we have a glass of wine? No, I did good. No,
very smoothly done. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, this topic, of course, is something I'm intimately involved with right now. Not only because of the Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center, but because I give to it, and some of the people on my board give to it. So the people who are involved, and I'm sure this is true with almost every organization that exists, that's a 501c3 organization, is that the people who are working within it are some of the main givers. They're supporting it because they believe in it, and belief in what you give to is what makes a lot of organizations tick, because they couldn't tick. We don't tick along without financial support, no matter how good our ideas is. And whether we're partially funded by government or partially funded by maybe one even main donor, it takes contributions by a lot of people, from amounts that are small to the amounts that are big, to make an organization work and last. Because when you go to the trouble of starting an organization, that's just the beginning. Now you've got to support it all along, because what you're striving to support is important to you. And we find that one of the main reasons people donate to any organization is because the donor is purpose driven. He looks at the organization, he sees what the organization does, and it's important to him. It takes the organization's goals on as something worth giving to. So, and I think the other thing is when that person donates, there's a byproduct of that donation, and that is that person feels really good. It feeds altruism. So, and I think
my favorite word, altruism, because that's what I want in the world. But it's but we have to strive for it, because you can't, people go, oh, that's an altruistic way of looking at things. And I get told that all the time, but I'm like, well, I still have to strive for it. Yeah. Whether or not it may be a pie in the sky, but you still reach for the pie.
I know.
Look at my belly.
Yeah. People sometimes say, oh, you're so altruistic, like it's a vice or something, but it's certainly not. And you're right. We absolutely would be much better off worldwide if altruism was kicking in full time.
Mm-hmm. But I think this is also part of building a community. And,
Yeah.
everybody has a way to give. And, you alluded to in the beginning is also, when you start a nonprofit, like, the Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center, again, everybody, swrm-art.org. When you start an organization like this, and I know many where basically it is volunteer run. Even in the tourism world, I know coalitions that get
Right.
together, volunteer run, no one's getting paid. And at
Right.
some point, you need someone to get paid. And
Yeah.
because for it to really function properly, you do need to have administration, and people get weird about nonprofits these days. Like, who can you trust? Who not? And a lot of times it's like, well, half of this goes to administration. I'm going, well, how the heck do you think anything's going to get done without someone running the office or actually
Yes.
making sure the books get done? Actually having someone answer the phones. Do you expect them to be in the jungle playing with a gorilla and still answer your call? Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
exist. So, or are you helping, whatever nonprofit it is, you can't expect everything to be 100% volunteer and not to have admin fees and actually someone who is there to really oversee everything. And so
Right.
that's a growing stage, but at the beginning is what's so interesting with what you're doing. You've been on the show a number of times talking about this, and it is a process, and it is a big process because you're not just opening up a little museum. This is a fine art museum, and
Yes.
representing a region and education. And it's changed a little bit as everyone comes together about what should this be for the area. You've taken in information of what the community wants, but at the end of the day, I really believe about creating patrons of the arts is about creating a community that supports the arts and is part of the arts. Would you feel that with
Yes.
what you've done and with everyone working with you on the museum?
Oh, yes. We we're a small group that started this museum, and we started it knowing we are not going to be around all the time to continue it. So we have to set it up so that it can be taken over. So we have a board of directors, yes, but we have to have bylaws. We have to operate on a certain level. There has to be a responsibility to our mission, and all these things get written down. And yes, we can carry it for a while, but our goal is for it to last into the non-foreseeable future, long after we're gone. I mean, if you look around the country, you see lots of museums. In fact, most of the big museums were started by one person or a family who gave the initial money or the place, and that gets taken over because what gets done within, from the initial idea, what gets done is of value to so many people, to a community, to a city, to individuals, and they can see the result. They can see the benefit. They can even feel the benefit sometimes. So we need money to do that, and so in our case, we've started an endowment to operate the museum once it's finished. Endowments are really important. Some people have the money to give an endowment. Most of us don't. And when you give an endowment, that endowment is usually limited in some way. If they take the endowment grows, and then what gets used from the endowment capital is actually what is earned in a year through investment and interest. So if you've got a $200,000 or $1 million endowment, only a percentage of that is going to actually be used in any given year. So, but it's a great thing to have because it's always there, and you can count on. So, what else?
No, I
so
was going to say that
most
that's one way for people to understand and give. And I know we're at the end of the year here in 2023, but with the holidays, people could be listening in the new year. And I think sometimes people go, oh, they're doing their end of the year budgeting and going, uh-oh, I better start giving now for tax
Yeah,
write-offs,
and
but you
and
might
we're
as well give in something you care about. And if not this year, you can plan for next year and plan for it and work towards it and understand where you're going. So have a plan, in place, right?
right, right, right. Yeah, we all have to have a budget. I mean, all of us know that a budget helps us as individuals
Yeah.
throughout the year. Helps you plan and so forth. Um, with individuals, if you're working for a living, you have a salary and you know what you're going to get every month. So budgeting shouldn't be that hard if everything goes according to plan. but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's a disaster and you have to spend extra money that you weren't counting on. And it's that way in business. And it's that way in charitable work too. I think
Mm.
one of the reasons we think about this at this time of year is we start to receive uh, organizations asking for help at the end of the year, and that's because they're trying to plan for the next year, and
Mm.
they want to know what's coming, what they could count on is coming in, or with a monthly donation, or they want to know what they're going to get right now. I mean, it really helps them to be able to budget. So right now you're getting inundated, aren't we all getting inundated
Yeah.
with things on the computer, things in the mailbox, and everything that sounds necessary somehow. I mean, there's an urgency to please for donations, and they're going to some are going to appeal to some people. Some are going to be ignored by some people. They're just hoping that if they send enough things out, they're going to strike it lucky with a number of
Yeah.
people. So there's a reason that's happening right now. I
Yeah,
think
it's always the end of year. I think there's so many end of
yeah,
year
yeah,
stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I have a friend that, she was telling me
I,
that she's like, you won't believe what's coming in my mailbox. It's this person, that person. And then she just sits there and
yeah,
goes, I know it's the season. And so she actually makes a separate mail pile. This is her, I don't want to say who she is
yeah,
on the air, but she actually keeps her mail and puts it all in a pile and she just lets the whole thing happen. And then when she's of the mind to do it and knows, she goes, okay. And she doesn't really care about the time of year. That's
hmm
just where she's at in her life. And she'll go through that mail stack of all of it and probably a good 3/4, 2/3 will be tossed. And she just
yeah,
makes her mind up from all of that, or she already knows who she's already donating to and working with.
yeah,
And I say working with because she's that kind of person. It's not like she's
sure,
not going to just write you a check and close her eyes. She's not one of those people. And that's
yeah,
why,
yeah,
well, she really reads what's coming in. And you can have all the urgency in the world. That's not going to move her. It's about what you're doing and what you're representing. And unless, even that, it doesn't matter if she thinks you're worthy of something, even if you're a musician. And if she missed your CD deadline, she doesn't care. She'll send you a
yeah.
check after. That's who she is. You
you
know.
know, you know, trust that organizations build over the years. You give them money 1 year, and they let you know afterwards. First of all, they thank you. Then they let you know afterwards at some point or during the year what your donation is doing or has done.
Very
And
important to do.
it is, and then you're not that person, that donation organization isn't a stranger anymore. You have learned to trust them, and trust is really important when you're giving out part of your income, no matter if it's $10 or $100 or $1,000. You want to know that you have made a difference your donation has made a difference to that organization.
Mm.
And so a lot of people, when they after a certain amount of time has passed and a certain amount of donations have been given, they have just learned that this is something they want to keep supporting, and
Mm.
that's really nice. One of the things I know that drives all this request for donations this time of year is the same, is similar to the what you experienced with end of the year sales in retail,
Mm-hmm.
because it's tax driven, and that's because like in retail, when they're at the end of the year, or they are taxed. Retail stuff is taxed also, not just what they've earned, but what they have in inventory. So if they
Mm.
haven't sold it, if it's an inventory, they it figures into their figuring of their taxes. So that's one reason. I mean, I get all kinds of things at the end of the year. You know, it starts out with Black Friday, and it keeps never stops. It seems like till January 31st, and the prices keep going down because they just want to get rid of the stuff. They're not really.
Oh,
They don't make a profit on it. They just get it out of inventory.
it's a
So,
break
and
even,
hopefully,
so you don't lose
yeah,
on it. You
it
know.
is. Yeah, it is. Right, right. They don't lose on it, and they don't get taxed on it. So that's their thing. So with organizations, um, one of the reasons, and I don't think it's a huge reason, um, but it's important. Some of the really large donors give it wait until the end of the year to decide who's going to get their donations and how much they're going to give, because that's sort of based on tax, also income tax, because um,
Mm-hmm.
if your taxes, um, if you're trying to use this as a donation off your taxes, so it gets credit to you, you have to be making over a certain amount of money to make it useful, to make the donation
Mm-hmm.
useful from a tax standpoint. Um, because most of us just take a standard deduction. Most of us
Right.
don't need more than that. So while we are giving, it doesn't really have much to do with taxes. It has more to do with how we view the organization, what we have seen it do, what we think it how it will impact the organization that we believe in, and
Mm-hmm.
that we trust the organization to do with the money that we give what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I know one thing I've learned to do in the last 20 years is to look online. If I get a request for a donation, I will look online up about that organization. There are lists that you can get online that tell you what percentage of the donations an organization receives actually go to what they say they will do, and don't go to executive um,
Mm-hmm.
salaries and so on. And that's
Yeah,
really
and that
revealing.
goes back to where we talked about, whereas
Yeah,
there's the executive salary where I see, and we've interviewed a lot of
yeah,
nonprofits over the years, a gazillion.
right.
And then I find out sometimes I'm like, well, why is that dude making that much? Like, honest
Right.
to God, I could run the organization on that amount of money. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm not, when I was first talking about admin, you need to have people
Uh-huh.
that are paid to do what they do in that nonprofit, if
Yeah.
their job is a necessary thing, right? Um, and I do believe that they should also have a lifestyle that is livable, right?
Sure.
So, in other words, they shouldn't have to, they shouldn't become a new project. You know what I mean, for us to save, right?
Yeah.
So if they
Yeah.
should, yeah,
Right.
it
Yeah.
should be sustainable and not basically the CEO being, the money that Bezos makes or something like that. We don't need that happening in that sphere. I don't care
Right.
how big the nonprofit is or any company, really. I mean, if you built that as your own thing, whatever, that's a whole other conversation. But in the nonprofit sphere, and you look at the arts, I understand people do get very big salaries because they do and are able to pull a lot of weight in contacts and all kinds of things. But you're right. It's about, are you going to do what you say you're going to do with this
Yeah.
money? And it's a big deal. And it's
Right.
important to do your research before you hand over your hard earned money or your company's hard earned money, because
Yeah.
this isn't
Oh,
just about personal donations. This can be corporate as well, because corporates,
right.
this is the time to offload right now if you need to. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Well, yeah, and also through corporations, a lot of times, really, some nice corporations offer to match their employees' contributions. So that's
Hmm.
something to think about also. Um,
I see a big change in how corporations are giving. Obviously, a lot of times
mhm.
they want to have their name on it as a sponsorship, but they're actually working with a nonprofit. I see entities where they're volunteering as well, not just doing donations. They're doing, like you're saying, like, hey, every dollar you give, we're going to give $2 or $1 or something like that. And then I'm also
Right.
seeing that they're becoming involved in the nonprofit. So if they're going in, they're going all in. They're doing it on social media. It becomes notoriety for everybody, and in a very positive way. It's not like, look at us,
Right.
more of, look at what this nonprofit is doing, and we're so happy to be part of this. And I think that's a kind of a newer trend than, hey, we're almighty sponsors. We're seeing this new trend of giving with a hand and a soul, and actually being involved, which is a good thing because it's more everlasting that way. Because I think when people put some there's dollar, everybody does what they need to do and can do, right? So there's some
Right.
people that,
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm across the country. This is what I can do. I believe in you and I wish I could do more, but this is what I can do. Maybe it's a check. Maybe it's a piece of art that, like for your museum, everyone's different. And so, and I think
Right.
that's important to talk about in giving, that you do what you can do. And, nobody wants to really overextend, because we all have to be sustainable. But at the same time, when a company can come in and, like, when we started this conversation, it was about breeding community about a nonprofit. I think that's, whether the community is national, international, or completely local, it's an important thing. And because people feel a camaraderie and will give more, and actually it changes people's lives in the process, not just in
It,
what the
it,
nonprofit is doing, but it's changing those who give. It's changing their lives.
yes. Well, you can see it, and the more organizations who need donations put personal stories out there. That I think
Yeah.
that happens because those personal stories are living examples of what their donations have done. Yes.
And with
Um,
the arts, isn't that also really crucial? Because at one point we lost a lot of our programs in schools. Some have come back.
well,
Every place is different.
yeah,
So it's kind of this thing where, it's always like nonprofits almost fight amongst each other. Like, I'm, saving a baby over here and you're doing art. Well,
yeah,
actually art is part of quality of life. And, so and it shouldn't get to that level, but at times it has. And, so I want to talk about the importance of actually supporting the arts, because, um, it, in my mind, just
okay. Well,
my opinion
yeah,
is it helps quality of life and learning skills no matter what age you are in. And
yeah.
it just is the what it does is massive. I feel British now. Massive. I love that word. It is. It's
It
massive. The
is.
ripple effect of the arts. you can't actually touch because it goes beyond, like a museum can never quantify the effects. Like if someone looks at a piece of art, right? We know people go to see a piece of Picasso art, go see his art in a museum.
Right.
The ripple effect of that, you can't even quantify. It's impossible.
No,
You
no.
can guess it, but it's impossible.
I have been. It's interesting that you mentioned quantification there, because uh, I'm 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 working on um presenting a case, like I'll call it a case statement, to the people that we are telling about our museum.
Hmm.
We aren't asking for money. We are trying to tell them what we want to do, what we believe we can do. Um, but of course, we hope that they will agree with us. We hope maybe even come up with other suggestions, and uh, and tell their friends. Because when we do ask for money, which we will have to do in order to get enough capital funding to build a building, we hope that they will have listened to us. They will have we could present it in a way that they will understand its importance. So to that up to that point, I have been
Hmm.
looking at statistics, educational statistics in K through 12 for my state, and then I've tried to narrow it down to the county level. And that information is usually available online when you ask for what the curriculum is. And it's
Hmm.
surprising to me because visual art. I mean, I think music has more appeal just across the board because everybody responds to a beat. Everybody
Hmm.
can appreciate music a variety of levels.
Hmm.
Visual art
Sure.
requires more thought
Hmm.
because we have to when we see it we ask questions about it,
Yeah, and
and
interpretation needs an
yeah,
interpretation too, right? Hmm.
yeah. So it's really interesting to me that and we've seen this for the last probably 30 years how, and I'll just use the word arts as a general term, that the arts are being not, more or less forced out of the educational level of life,
Wow.
uh, out of schools, or not totally dismissed, but lowered in people's estimation, because we have so many other things that now they're required to teach, and there's only so many hours in a day, and something
Mm.
has to give, and it's usually the arts. So,
Wow.
um, for instance, like some schools will have a band, but the purpose of the band is really to play at the halftime of the football games, or
Right.
um, they've dismissed art classes, etc., as not being important. What they don't realize is that 65%, statistically, 65% of all people can learn better and better retain what they learn through through the material being presented visually,
Mm.
and part of that is through art. So um,
Mm.
I guess I was really lucky when I was in grade school. Even art was in every single class I had. It was a part of learning. It was a technique to help you learn. It wasn't a technique to draw pretty pictures, but it was but that art visual learning was used in my math classes, in my social study classes, in reading classes.
Hmm.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. They A lot of places then things got specialized, so you had to have a teacher for each class, and then you had to have a separate art teacher, and that was where you did art. You didn't do it in all your other classes, and it was a shame because it really helps people to learn, to
Mm.
understand, and they do it by seeing. So
Yeah. I want to touch on
anyway,
this because I think it's creativity. that you're also
Yeah.
learning, right? And
Yes. Oh, yeah,
improvisation
sure.
and the in creativity in this day and age, right? And through all ages, honest
Yeah.
to God, like creativity is so crucial. And when you think about
Yeah.
right now, as we go through magnificent changes in every industry is going through a change. I don't care if it's cars. I don't care if it's electricity and power. I mean, there is
Yeah.
change, 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 climate change, art change, school change. There's changes where people are not even going to work. They're working at home. We have change
Yeah.
everywhere. And the one thing you can guarantee to learn about change is through art because creativity is about change and reinterpretation and new interpretations,
Yeah.
feeling, emotions, history, all of it, right? And so I think
Exactly. Yeah.
we have Google and we have all the AI tools and the chat things and all of that. But if you don't take a step back, and that's what's a very fearful time right now that we have, is if we do not understand the difference between art and AI, we're going to have a problem. And so
Yeah.
that's a whole other conversation. But I think what's also happened in schools and in life, there's wonderful organizations around the country and around the world for the arts, whether or literary, stage. Um, but as things get dumped out of the education system, they literally get dumped onto the shoulders of nonprofits that sometimes don't even exist or are being
Yeah.
started and need to get there, and they have to go through gazillion pieces of red tape, organizational stuff, getting the funding, making things work. So there's all this time that goes into it. And so in a way,
Right.
I kind of look at it almost as an art emergency. I'm not trying to be, crazy, but I look at it
Yeah.
that in that way across the country. You and I talk about this, and Nancy all the time on the shows about public art being great. That's one of those wonderful solutions. But majority of public art is nonprofit and public supported, community supported. And it help
Right.
a lot of times it's the artists are paid or sometimes they're not. It's a great thing, but it's not good enough, quite frankly. We need
Yeah.
programs, we need interpretation. You can't just go into a gallery, look at a piece of art and walk out. That's not good
Right.
enough.
Right. Well, to go back to the statistics I mentioned, we've got that on one side. Then I went to look at what was happening in my state, and I went to look at what was happening in the as far as art curriculum goes.
This is
In
where she's
the
going to
count.
tell me that everything I know is wrong. My opinions are
No,
wrong.
no, no,
See, I
no,
went on a
no,
rant.
no. I'm.
Sorry.
You're right. You're right. But I'm going to give you an actual statistic.
That's
Anyway,
important.
um, we're considered to have many tough schools in this state.
In
I
New
don't think
Mexico, everybody, just to remind
yeah.
everyone where you are.
Okay. Yeah. So, but where they have art, the few of the schools have an art program, an art class, actual art class that meets every day. Not very many, though, have that. Some schools have art classes 3 times a week, and that's considered pretty good by some, not me.
I'd say
Anyway,
okay-ish.
but 33% of schools consider it either an extracurricular activity, which
Ooh.
means after school. To me, anyway, that's what it means to me, extracurricular.
So it's not as
And
important as history.
no, and one of the other things that's treated as extracurricular in the same category is sports. So, and both of those are important. They're just important in different ways. Sports teaches certain things. It
Sure.
teaches skills which you're probably never going to use in real life, and it teaches teamwork, which you likely are going to use. It teaches strategy, which you're going to use possibly. So, but art is used by all of us every day, whether we realize it or not. Now,
Yeah, and individual thought, individual thinking.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other type of curriculum um, category is within that 33% is that some schools have it once a week in a class,
Whoa.
as a group activity, I should say, as a group activity. So I mean that's very weak. After as extracurricular is terribly non-useful, and they're just not getting. It could be incorporated into everything, but
That's sad for New
but
Mexico
we can.
because you have a good state of art. You are like one of the top art states. Like,
Yes,
look at,
but it's generally
oh,
centered. It's generally centered in the north part of the state. But what what a museum can do in a community is they can pick up the slack, especially a museum with an art center. They pick up the slack that is being dropped through the
mm,
the holes, I guess, by school curriculums, and they can create a positive effect in a community, and a positive effect for individuals that would never have the chance. Like that's
mhm.
one reason why we are here in southern New Mexico, which is a very underserved area of the state, um, and and we're at least 4 to, depending on where you are in the southern part of the state. If you're down at the Mexico border, you're at least 8 hours away from an art museum in the northern part of the state, and
Mm.
where most of them are centered. So if you're a little closer, like we are in Silver City, it's 4 hours away. So, because New Mexico is a pretty big state,
Yeah,
but
it
uh,
is.
but I mean, there's a not just a disparity in how things are in the state. It's just if there's a real
Somebody
dearth,
dropped the
I guess.
ball.
Just
Yeah, let's put it this way:
yeah.
the ball has been
Well,
dropped, and it's not just one person or anything, so I shouldn't even say it, but it has been
no.
overlooked. It's an overlooking that is, I think,
Well,
detrimental. I mean, but the museums, that's why I said at the beginning there that, nonprofits are picking up the slack. And
yeah,
education right now, how many interviews have people heard on, podcasts and radio shows, newspapers about the lack of teachers we have in this country. We really do have an education issue in America. We really do. It's not funny. And it's sad, yet we have some amazing private
yeah,
schools, public schools, and
yeah,
so it's each place is different. So I'm trying not to generalize, but I am
yeah,
because it's the only way we can do it on the time constraints. So please, you may be living in a place that has a top-notch art school project thing going on. Awesome.
yeah,
But not the whole country does not have that, right? So if you do,
no,
that is
no,
awesome. But museums do pick up the slack, and there's all kinds of programs like free museum days and stuff like that. Sometimes locals get in free, but museums to me have always had this educational component of blowing your mind sometimes, it's a majority of the time.
yeah,
I'm thinking about even just the trip we did in Santa Fe in 2019, going to different museums. And I hadn't been into like a serious art museum for a while. Did in Balboa Park, San Diego Art Museum. I think you've probably been there too. And I remember seeing
yeah,
Michael Escher's art and going, holy cow. Like it made me as a human being understand that you to stop limiting yourself as a human, as an
yeah,
individual.
yeah,
Art uh, allows you to grow beyond your boundaries that you put up yourself that you don't need. And sometimes we need these external things to happen and for us to witness beyond our family, beyond our friends, something that you can internalize yourself and go back and
right.
then read about the artist and um, go beyond just seeing a painting, internalize it and go down rabbit holes. Victoria, we love those around here. Um, but you know what I mean? It's those things that allow you to grow and spread wings. And like I said, in
Yeah,
the way the world is now, our youth and all ages. We need to think outside the box, and art
Yeah,
is the first step, whatever form it
yeah,
is. It is the first step. So a
yeah.
museum's role is huge in a community like yours.
It is. It is. Um, so I would say, to people who are inclined to donate, and don't feel like you have that your donation is not worthwhile if it is only a small donation, because every donation counts.
Hmm.
And I would also say that it's up to you, I guess, really, to make sure you're donating to the organization that's going to follow through on what they tell you they're going to do. Um, most of them will, but you just need to check up. I mean, especially if you're giving a small donation, it requires as much thought for most of us to give a small donation as to give a big donation, and we want it to be used for what we think it's going to be used for, what we're
Hmm.
told it's going to be used for. So
Hmm.
so take time to just look up the organization and take a look on the list um, of all organizations um, that want donations, and find out what percentage of their money that comes in goes to supporting what you believe it will.
Mm. You know, when quote Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's
Yes.
the only thing that ever has. Whether you like Margaret Mead or not, that's a truth right there, and that's a really true thing. Whether it's volunteering, donating, being involved in whatever way you can, it is a big deal. When you were talking about the statistics, you were talking about your area and the state. Do you have any idea like what we are like in this country as the patron of the arts? I think Europe historically, in fact, that could be a really good show again. Here we go on another topic. Historically, the patron of the arts wasn't that kind of it kind of was there. Like people supported
Well,
artists and sometimes not. There's the starving artist. We've done that conversation, right? But there's a history of
yeah.
people supporting artists as being an important piece of life. So where are we in this country in regards to understanding the importance of art? Because I think Europe gets it a little bit more than us, and maybe we're getting there. We're getting there, but we might need
Well,
a swift kick in
yeah.
the butt ski.
Well, I don't know if I don't know if Europe gets more than us, but we certainly perceive it that way. And maybe it's because we we have
We're
so many
young.
ta- historic ties to Europe that we elevate it. I don't know for sure, but the, the what we think of as public art today, like museums, um, concert halls, and that kind and so forth. Those were started in Europe by individuals. Uh, kings would would kings would hire famous artists, or artists became famous because kings hired them. Or there's a museum. There are museums today that exist because they were once the palaces of an individual, and that individual died, and then the community, I would say the community, the French Revolution, for instance, as a community took over a building, and it was eventually then designated as a museum. If it wasn't, if it wasn't destroyed, but but
Mm,
uh, today we have the National Endowment for the Arts,
hmm.
and they're trying. They're they have people who are interested in promoting the arts, but they seem mainly interested in cutting edge stuff.
Hmm.
So, and we don't have enough distance between cutting edge and us to say this is great, this is valuable. How will people look at this? And is this worthy of being saved? Because somebody in 100 years from now is going to look at it as a fabulous thing. We don't know that, so you sort of have to. These people take a risk promoting anything contemporary, but anything contemporary has to be included.
Wow.
So you have to then choose the best examples of that you can, and because it reflects the time we live in, just like
Well,
all art
contemporary,
reflects the
it's
time.
crazy. Contemporary. I mean,
Yeah,
you're a contemporary figurative artist, which we should do a thing on that sometime too, because
yeah,
I always answer that. I always explain your art to people. I'm like, she gets the movement of the cat before the cat does the
yeah.
movement. Like, I try to always
Well,
explain this to people, but the reality, like now, contemporary, like now, modern day contemporary, like now, what are
yeah,
we doing with AI? That's being part of it. We're doing, art that is just only seen
yeah.
on digital.
We have not. We have artists have. I don't think artists have caught up with AI yet. I think it's going to take another decade before they
Yeah.
really do that. Just like it took a while for people to get computer art down, and there's still not a lot of people that work as artists and as fine artists, I should say, on computer art. But there are many artists that are dealing with computer art every day, but in a commercial way, like movies, for instance. Um,
Wow.
uh,
Yeah. So it's
so
all,
so
it's,
things change. You know, you it takes a while to adapt
I,
and learn the skills.
but the museums hold the history and of now
Yeah,
and the education and all these different and locality like you know um with your museum, not yours personally, so when I say that I mean everyone, the
yeah,
Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Art Center, with that in Silver City, you guys are already getting donations. You have tons of donations of art that is high-end art, quality art that needs to be viewed and interpreted and experienced. um but getting a building is a big key, and being able to hold on to that building without it going away is
yeah,
also another
right,
big important thing. And that is important for museums to be able to do what they need to do and have different wings for different exhibits, permanent, rotating. And
right.
with you being in Silver City, which is an art community with numerous galleries, studios, artists that are not always able to be in galleries, but have to, struggle on their own. I think sometimes there's just this inspiration of going to a museum and seeing someone that may have struggled like you. Like, we've done these shows lately on the
Yeah,
Olympics, and I have no clue about sports whatsoever, but I appreciate, just like most human beings, a story of someone just going for it, no matter the struggle. We
yeah.
want to be the starving artist that made it. Like, that went from here's your crust of bread
It
to
shows it's
enjoying
possible.
the
It's
filet
possible.
mignon. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's true. It's true. Exactly what you're saying. I mean, how many people would love to be in the movies and work toward that, actively work toward it, and how many of them ever make it? Uh, it's a small percentage. So, but those other people are still very good. So they could still be actors, or they could still work in productions. They might be stage productions. It might be, it might be commercials. There's all kinds of things that can be done, even if you don't quite make it where you would like to make it. So,
well, there's so many artists that make it, and it's when they pass
yes,
on, which sucks. Like, you
yes,
want them to,
yes.
and
You
then
don't
and
know.
then half of them don't probably even care at that. As long as they have their wine
Yeah,
at the end of the day with their painting, you know. Well, I'm just, the old picture of, the artist and the wine and the cheese and the music, Um,
yeah.
it sounds good to me, but that's not really what happened for everyone. Oh,
No,
maybe some, but Pollock gets a little interesting. But I just feel like there's that story of like, don't give up, because the world has changed. And when you go back in
yes,
history, there were
Yeah.
different struggles, and some of them worse than what we're dealing with today. And so
Right.
find your story that you can keep going. You don't have to be the famous artist. Like I was saying back in the day, like half of these people died before they knew they got famous. And
Yeah.
we hope that doesn't stay the case, but you find inspiration to move forward. And I think that's something that museums really do is they open your mind to
Yes.
that inspiration I was talking about, where you feel like, okay, I can have wings. I can do this. Somebody else did it. I can do it. I'm part of the human race. I'm allowed. I have
Yeah.
wings too. I can fly. I can do it. But have a good breakfast first. But it's
Well, part of visual art anyway is problem solving, and most people never think of that. They think they've got to follow a list of rules, maybe, uh, but it helps to see when you're doing a piece of art, say, and somebody really likes it, and then you get some requests to, hey, make me something like that, and you might do it again, but if you're creative, no, you don't want to recreate it. You want to create something new. So you move on, and
Mhm.
you create something different. Maybe it might be a takeoff from what you learned the last time, but now you're ready to try something else. And most creative people are like that. One thing that taking or I hate the word phrase taking art lessons, because that sounds so boring. but when you are given the opportunity to be in a space where creativity is encouraged, that makes all the difference. And when you are working in a space like that, creating is what you want to do, and
Mm.
and not do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
The public
Yeah.
is the public a lot of times likes to have you do the same thing or almost the same thing over and over again. And
Mm.
that's a hard thing for a very creative person to enjoy doing. That's when they open their own company and they hire people. Because I'm not just talking about art when I talk about creativity, because there's creativity that is possible in almost every endeavor.
But it comes from art.
But
I mean, art and
yeah,
creativity are hand in hand.
yes,
Yeah.
visual thinking encourages you to think creatively,
Hmm.
and so whatever you would ultimately decide to wind up doing, um, you have had the experience, the thrill of that creative process, and you're likely to continue doing it, whatever endeavor you're involved in.
Most high-end CEOs, owners of high-end companies, and I mean, making those big bucks, right? And the ones that do the
Yeah,
donations are inspired by the arts in some way. Whether
yeah,
it's even culinary or winemaking, they appreciate something that is crafted and thought about
yeah,
and goes over the lines. Art is about
yeah.
going over the lines and knowing how to do it and breaking those barriers, and doing what is the integrity. I always use that word with you, and you've always used that word is that integrity of what you're
Right.
supposed to do and not being exactly told what not conforming, you know,
Right.
com-
Yes.
not conforming and not being that's why I hated uniforms in school and other people love them. I'm like, dude, I tore mine up. I mean, I threw my hat under the bus so many times, literally. Nancy was so mad at me because it's not cheap and it was rude of me to do as a kid. And, I didn't understand the financial obligations. But I was
Right.
rebelling about having to wear a hat every day. I was like, this is not me. And they sucked. Listen, what are you doing to these kids? Stop it. It's just horrible. God, what are these uniforms? What are you thinking? And oh, you can only roll your socks down once. I was like, no, I'm rolling mine 100%. No, you'll be in. So I was in detention permanently. But I was in there questioning, and my mom Nancy, as you all know her on the shows, and you know her well, Vicky. It's Questioning is a good thing. If your kids are rebels and brats at school, it means they're questioning, and also means they're bored. If they're and the arts is one of those things that takes boredom away, um, and allows the creative to go from that questioning. And if there's no questioning, what are we doing to dull our kids out that they're not questioning?
Yeah.
Questioning
Yeah.
is important in business. You should be questioning everything in business and what can we do better? What can we do to break the mold? People talk about disruptors. I hate that word personally because it's like a negative word. Um, but disruption comes from not conforming, and that comes from the arts. And most of those people who've been the disruptors in these businesses and startups, guess where they go to find inspiration? They go to art museums. They go to the arts. They go to the arts, period. They
Yeah.
study the arts. And guess who gives back? Those people, because that helped them. They, they feel like they have to give back to what taught them so much. And a museum, it's again, the quantifiable thing. It's impossible because it gives so much back that you can't add up those numbers and you can't find it. The
Right.
ripple effect goes internationally, globally, because when someone goes to a museum, they tell another person, maybe show a picture, have a conversation, and then it breeds from there. That ripple effect just is like, you
Right.
can't quantify it. You can't. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. So when you give to something like that, you're a part of this mass swelling of good ripples in the world instead of the negative ripples. We don't need any more of those. And that's the thing. And it could be, hey, I'm helping you with a CD. You're putting out an album. Here's your $5, but you're part of that. Then you hear the album
Yeah.
come out and you're like, dude, I helped with that. I was helping that musician make that album. It could
Yes.
be that,
There's so much.
a kid learned how to paint in a museum and became the next Picasso. I mean, who knows? Or just was happy as an artist, actually found the calling strong enough to do that instead of become the doctor that his parents told him to be.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Well, you never know, and you're right about the level of satisfaction to the donor who's helped it along. Yeah.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
say that. So
Yeah. No, I agree. I think people do give back when the arts give to them. So there's a lot. I think it's exciting. So you're still working on the building, right, for the museum?
yes, yes, we are. We are going to be starting our capital campaign, which basically is raising enough money to open the museum. So it's a little bit more than just the shell of the building, but that's the main thrust of it. Yeah, and I'm hoping that will probably last the capital campaign lasts about a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hoping that gives us enough money to begin, and I'm hoping that after that it will take maybe a couple of years to actually be ready to open. So it's very exciting. It really is, and every day is kind of like a little bit of mini roller coaster because something good and something that will slow us down seems to happen on the same day. But
Yeah.
we're basically moving forward. So it's very positive, very
It's
positive,
exciting. On the other
and,
side,
and
Nancy and I've watched you do this, not watched you physically, but you've been on the show and
right.
talked with us at the beginning of this seed of an idea. And it does take time and it's a huge set of challenges, but don't you feel good personally doing this set of challenges, the seed of an idea actually
Well,
growing?
yes, yes. Because this is something I have never done before. It's something I never dreamed of doing before. It's just sort of happened. I heard somebody speak at a meeting I went to about endowment funds, and I had never thought of that before. Because I thought only really, 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 really rich people have enough
Mhm.
money to put into an endowment, but I found that wasn't true. I could put in a modest amount and it would grow and it would eventually be ready when we were ready to have a museum. And this museum wasn't even my conception at that time. It was just
Hmm.
it was just out there. So when the endowment was written, it was just the reason for it is to provide operating funds for a museum in Silver City if ever one was built. I mean, it was so
Hmm.
vague. And if after I die, and my will is read, uh, they would have whoever the organizing group was would have 3 years to start acting on it, or it would go to a different organization. Uh, so um, so a lot of this has come about not just because I did it, but because other people saw the opportunity, and it seemed to get them excited about the possibility, the real possibility of this happening. And so they didn't want to wait till I died. they 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 wanted to start right away, and so they did.
Hmm.
And
That's exciting.
I'm grateful to them. Yeah, they took my germ of an idea and they have run with it, and that's exciting. That's creative.
It it
So
is. Yeah, and you have to be
yeah,
creative in fundraising too. It's all
yes,
creative.
exactly.
Um,
So
Nancy and I are so
well,
excited for this,
I
you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, you guys have always been so supportive, and I'm really happy to talk about this today because um, I guess I get to um, express a lot of stuff that I don't usually get to express, and about the importance of donors because we're usually talking about specifics to the museum
Mm.
and things that have just happened or whatever, and how it relates to Silver City, which is a wonderful art town. Um, but it's nice to put the people who give
Mm-hmm.
to any organization, to give to any nonprofit organization the credit for what happens within that organization that makes wonderful things happen.
I agree. We do, we do so much in nonprofit coverage on our shows. Like,
Yeah,
and when you hear what they do and you hear the success stories, the challenges too, your heart is just like, wow, you know?
yeah,
Um, and you want to give everywhere. And
yeah,
but it's when you hear how these programs work and the effects they have, the influence they have, and sometimes you see like a kid go from a nonprofit program, grow up, and then that program help them in some way, whether it be the arts or, maybe it's sports or something. We've been around that long now that we can look at some of these programs. Museums, definitely a huge part of it, especially when they're iconic in a community. It becomes
yeah.
like an important landmark, right, for locals and for travelers.
Right, right.
And a museum is a museum that is so, for the traveler, for an art lover, it doesn't mean it's I know it's regional, but it's also giving to a region that needs it, right? And so you can live in New York and do it, is my point. You don't need to,
Yeah,
you live in England and if you have a connection to, Silver City or New Mexico as a state or even the Southwest,
yeah.
it's about
Right.
uplifting a region, right? It's uplifting kids, people that come there that you'll never know, travelers that come in. I remember once in our band when we were just starting out and we were rehearsing in this guy's house years ago. And this is hysterical, Victoria, and I can't even believe I'm saying this on a show. And well, it was a young kid. I mean, I was in what, 21, 22, and our band was rehearsing there, and he was a guitarist, and we're all looking at each other, going, "This kid's like, no way, no, this is not happening," and little off, you know. And he was right off Highway 78. And you remember that in San Diego, Highway 78 going,
Yes.
through
Yep. Yep.
North San Diego. And literally his house overlooked it. It was a cool house too. And great recordings, great acoustics. but this guy was nuts. But he turned, he says, people go by my house every day and I don't even know who they are. And Nancy and I still laugh about this to this day. This was years ago. I mean, a few decades now. And we laugh about it, but he really was like, they're part of my community. And, as crazy as this dude was, and that's a whole other show on that. He's right. You never know the impact you make. You can never
Yeah.
quantify it. But if you can even
Right.
think the smallest, you need to just expand and expand and expand that number, because just
Yep.
think of the smallest thing that you would be happy with and know that it's going to be more than tenfold. Because I
Yes.
know even on shows like we've done a nonprofit thing where like years later somebody donated to a nonprofit years later, and it was pretty big. And it went to a nonprofit. We got an email. It was like, dude, did you know? And I'm like, I can't really trace this person down, but I can trace the lineage and of timelines and whatever. And it was
Hmm.
significant, but it was a podcast that was years ago, and someone heard
Yes.
it and donated. And now you think back to how big that organization's come, not just from that donation, but from all the others, and it's quantifiable. That's why I say community. Is we started with that
Right.
word, and I believe that. And it doesn't matter. It's not always local. It's local, but it's not. It's a community of people that care about the arts and care about, hey, elevating life, quality of life, and creativity. So I think it's beautiful what you're doing, because you're going to impact all these travelers, not just your local community, all these travelers
Right.
coming in that never have that time in their own community and probably don't even go to their local community fine art museum because they don't have
Yeah.
time, you know? So,
That's what's
um,
true. It's true. We that's one thing. One of the things we expect, of course, is more people visiting, because we have a lot of visitors here now. Since it is an art community, and there's a lot of galleries that are really good, and people come here because of the national forest, primarily sometimes, and they want to hike, they want to experience the wilderness and so forth. So you've got people who come here not for art reasons, a lot of them, but once they're here, then they find out, oh, there's a museum or there's art galleries. They go to the art galleries. We expect them to come to the museum, and so it might be something that they have never thought about going to a museum before, but maybe they'll really have a good time. Maybe they'll enjoy it, see something that really impacts them, and maybe they go back to their home state or their hometown and say, why don't we go to the museum that's here? That was pretty good over in Silver City. So you don't know how it's going to impact people. You are absolutely
mm.
right.
Well, also, the fact is, you're in Silver City, New Mexico, an art town,
Yep.
right? An art town. I say town because I
Oh,
don't feel like it's a
absolutely.
city,
Yeah.
right? I don't feel like it's a
No.
city,
Yeah.
but the amount of
No, it's
art
not.
and artists is huge. Santa Fe, look at Santa Fe. It's like it's the capital of this, like the first capital
Yeah.
in the state, and it's beautiful and so full of art. It's one of the top art markets in the country and around the world. Yet,
Yep.
Albuquerque's got a strong, and it feels like all these major art hubs have museums, and Silver City has museums, but not 100% dedicated to the art. It's indigenous art and then local life, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But having a
Right.
fine art museum to me is what, we've talked about that before on shows, but I'm going to agree with you from a long, long time ago, at the beginning of this seed of what you were like, I want to do this. I'm going to do it. It wasn't like, here's the seed and just like, oh, I think one day. No, you Victoria, like when she wants to do something, is going to do it. Um, you were like, you can't be really, truly 100% 100% an art destination without the Fine Art Museum being a component. And I think you're
Yeah.
really right. In all the places we've been, it's like, oh, that's the word almost becomes whimsical, cute little art town, quaint, charming. But you don't ever say that when you have a fine art museum. Now it's like, holy cow, this stuff is real. This is like fine art
Yeah.
and, number of galleries. And then you
Well,
become
yeah.
this elevation
Yeah.
It's not gentrification, just so I can clear that up right now. It is about bringing more education and knowledge into a place and
Yes.
uplifting the artists, and it will help all the artists within your community being profitable, which they need. I'm just saying.
I believe it will, Lisa. That's one of the good things. One of my motivations is that I moved here and I love it so much. I it is and I've lived in some nice places and I've lived in some art places, but just general all around, I love Silver City more than any place I've ever lived, and it's the way when I heard this lady talking, and I realized there was a way I could raise the level of culture. Maybe I'll just use that word in Silver City. Raise the level of culture, raise the level of education, raise the pride that people have in Silver City already. That it just seemed like something that all of a sudden everything just clicked for me, and then other people heard about it and it clicked for them, and they are actively working towards getting this museum completed and on the road, so to speak.
See, that's a community right there. Yeah.
Yes,
That's
yes,
amazing.
and it's just very exciting, very exciting.
I love it. I love it. Everyone, the website again is swrm-art.org. And again, in the show notes, it's all representing the Southwest Regional Museum of Art and Arts Center. It is a wonderful project, and it's going to be a huge, huge addition to Silver City, New Mexico, and the southwest corner of the state. It really is going to be an institution. It's going to become one of those things where anywhere you go in the Southwest New Mexico region, you're going to know this is a must do. And we're very excited and so glad and honored to be able to have these conversations and candidly too, because I think many people there's so many people doing this in different communities in different it could be a wildlife organization, just even doing this in different roads, because like as we said, the arts are kind of way low down in schooling, and I think smaller communities that have things that they need to do, but it's a hard road and it's challenging but rewarding. And so hopefully these conversations also inspire those out in the rest of the country and around the world that listen in to keep pursuing that and to do it and to find those community members that can help you. And I keep using the word community because I think nothing gets done without a community. Even tourism doesn't work. You can't go to a town without everybody being part of it. So keep up with it, and big round of applause for everybody doing it. And let's all support everyone we possibly can, whether it's not just donations, but volunteering. I think that's all the other thing is volunteer where you can. And if anything, the one thing we can do is share things on social media and share things with friends, especially those, that can actually make a difference. And if someone's looking for a volunteering spot, let them know. And if someone's looking to donate, I mean, we're at that time of year, either the end of the year, dump it out before you give it to the government, or plan for it next year, get it in your plans. If you know people, that's the one thing you can do too. So we all have a role that we can play. So thank you so much, everyone. Again, Victoria is victoriachick.com. We're at bigblendradio.com. Thank you and happy holidays, Victoria. Always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. It's always fun talking to you, and happy rest of the month for you too. I always hesitate. I'm scared, because we're in a
Merry Christmas. We can
here.
Say that.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, Happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa.
That's what I want to say. Whatever you are celebrating, do it well. Okay.
Yeah, good. There you go. You got it. Perfect.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. You can view Victoria Chick's artwork at victoriachick.com. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.